The story begins not with a map, but with a voice calling out into the silence of a desert night. Under a canopy of infinite stars, the Creator spoke a promise to a man named Abraham that would alter the course of all human history. It was a covenant forged in pure faith, a bloodline destined to become a light to the nations and a vessel for the divine purpose. This wasn't merely a gift of land, it was a weight of spiritual responsibility spanning millennia. Abraham looked toward the horizon, seeing a future where his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, a people chosen to carry the signature of the Almighty through the ages. As generations unfolded, this promise crystallized into the 12 tribes of Israel, a tapestry of families. They were a people born in the crucible of both divine favor and internal human struggle. From the harsh sun of Egypt to the wandering years in the wilderness, the identity of the nation was hammered out through miracles and mistakes. They carried the tabernacle, a holy sanctuary, reminding them that their king was the Creator. Yet the human heart remained a battlefield of the soul. The tension between their holy calling and earthly desires created a narrative of oscillation between devotion and rebellion, setting the stage for a drama that would eventually shake the world. The narrative reached a shimmering crescendo during the Golden Age. Under King David, a mighty man after God's own heart, Jerusalem was the beating heart of the nation. His son Solomon, the wisest king, realized the dream of a permanent dwelling for the divine. The first temple rose above the city like a beacon of hope, its gold-leafed walls reflecting the sun. During these years, Israel was a center of wisdom and spiritual power. People traveled from the ends of the earth to witness the order and peace that emanated from the holy city, where the presence of the Creator seemed to rest visibly upon his chosen people. However, the heights of glory often precede the depths of despair. Spiritual decline began as a slow turning of the heart toward the idols of neighboring nations. High places once echoing with psalms were now tainted by rituals that mocked the covenant. Despite the warnings of prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah who spoke with fire, the people remained deaf to the coming storm. They traded the eternal for the temporary, fracturing the spiritual shield that protected their land. The cracks in the kingdom grew into canyons, and the once united people found themselves vulnerable to the empires circling at their borders. Divine discipline arrived through iron and fire. The ancient Babylonian Empire swept across the landscape, leaving the holy city in desolate ruins and the temple a memory. Decades later, a remnant returned, but the struggle continued until Rome crushed the last vestiges of sovereignty. In the year 70, the Second Temple was razed, and the smoke of Jerusalem's violent burning filled the sky. This was the beginning of the diaspora, the Great Scattering. The people were forced into the four corners of the earth, losing their homes and their central place of worship. They became wanderers, carrying nothing but the sacred scrolls of the law and a fading memory. Before we continue, subscribe to the YouTube channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The world watched in silence as the children of Israel disappeared into the shadows of history, scattered across hostile continents, and submerged in cultures that sought their destruction. It is a historical impossibility for a displaced nation to survive 2,000 years without a land, yet the ancient scrolls they carried whispered persistently of a miraculous fate. In the darkest corners of exile, they remembered Ezekiel's vision of a vast valley filled with dry bones, bleached, scattered, and lifeless. The question hung in the air like a chilling mist. Can these bones live? This was the beginning of a prophecy that would one day defy logic and restore a people to their ancestral home. The long night of exile descended like a heavy shroud over the scattered children of Israel. For nearly 2,000 years, the bloodline of Abraham wandered history, a people without a passport, a nation without a border. From the cold cities of Europe to the sun-drenched markets of North Africa, they carried the weight of the diaspora. They faced the sting of pogroms and the isolation of ghettos. History seemed determined to erase their name, yet the spirit of the people remained unyielding. They were the burning bush of the desert, flaming with the fires of persecution, but never consumed by the flames. Despite the lack of a physical kingdom, the identity of Israel remained intact. While other ancient empires crumbled, the remnant of the Creator's people clung to their traditions with a holy tenacity. The ancient Hebrew tongue was preserved in prayer. Every Friday, Sabbath candles were lit, reminding them of an eternal covenant that time could not erode. 3 times daily, they prayed toward Jerusalem, whispering the hope, "Next year in Jerusalem." This faith acted as a thread, sewing a fragmented people together across oceans. However, the 20th century brought a darkness so profound it threatened to extinguish that flame. The world witnessed the rise of modern horrors, seeking the systematic erasure of the bloodline. In the shadow of the death camps, it seemed as though the valley of dry bones was no longer a vision, but an agonizing reality. The world remained silent as millions perished. It seemed the prophecy had failed. Dry bones were scattered, bleached by hatred, seemingly beyond any hope of resurrection. It was the darkest hour before an unpredicted dawn. Yet, amidst catastrophe, a stirring began. The Creator had not forgotten the ancient promise. A sudden miraculous shift began to ripple through the global landscape. From the ashes, a longing for Zion ignited into a roaring fire. The dry bones mentioned by the prophet Ezekiel began to rattle and draw near to one another. Across the globe, Jewish people felt an irresistible pull back to the land of their fathers. It was a movement fueled by tragedy and a divine destiny that could no longer be contained by foreign borders. Then came the year 1948, a moment that defied the logic of political science. Amidst the smoke of a post-war world, a dramatic fulfillment of Isaiah's ancient words took place. Could a nation be born in a single day? Against all odds, the state of Israel was proclaimed. The world watched in awe as the nation was re-established on its ancient foundations, as the scriptures had foretold. Even as armies gathered at its borders to crush the fledgling state at its birth, the restoration held firm. The miracle of survival was no longer a story of the past. It was now the unfolding headline of the present. As the people returned, the very earth seemed to recognize its children. The barren, neglected landscape began a radical transformation. Through grit and divine providence, the desert began to bloom. Desolate hills were covered in green forests, and the ancient ruins of biblical cities were rebuilt with modern stone. The land of milk and honey, which had lain dormant for 2 millennia, awoke with a vibrancy that signaled the physical restoration mentioned in the scriptures. Israel became a leader in innovation, a testament to the resilience of a people who refused to die. But this restoration was not without its shadows. Just as the nation found its footing and the desert turned green, the surrounding tensions began to rise to a boiling point. The miraculous return did not bring immediate peace. Instead, it set the stage for a geopolitical storm involving every major power. The eyes of the world turned once again to the small strip of land by the Mediterranean, sensing that the ancient scrolls were not yet finished speaking. The stage was being set for a final confrontation that would test the resolve of the nations and the strength of the covenant. Jerusalem stands today not merely as a city of stone and history, but as the pulsating heart of a global storm. As the prophet Zechariah predicted thousands of years ago, the holy city has become a burdensome stone for all the peoples of the earth. Leaders in distant capitals debate its borders, while the streets of the city itself vibrate with the weight of competing claims and ancient spiritual longings. This tiny piece of geography, no larger than a speck on a world map, dictates the pace of international diplomacy and the focus of the world's most powerful nations. The tension is palpable, a thick atmosphere of anticipation where every political move feels like a step toward an inevitable conclusion. It is a place where the physical and the supernatural collide, and where the world's gaze is fixed with an intensity that defies logical explanation. Every stone in the western wall and every olive tree on the hillsides seems to whisper of an unfolding destiny that the rest of the world can sense but cannot fully grasp. Amidst this geopolitical pressure, a quieter but equally profound miracle continues to unfold. From the icy plains of Russia to the vibrant villages of Ethiopia and the bustling cities of the Americas, the ingathering of the exiles persists. It is as if the Creator has sounded a divine whistle, a frequency heard only by the scattered children of the covenant. They come by plane and by ship, carrying the stories of 100 different cultures but united by a single ancestry. This return is the living fulfillment of the promise that though they were scattered to the furthest corners of the heavens, they would be brought home. Each new arrival is a stitch in the repair of a tapestry that was torn 2,000 years ago. They are not just returning to a land, they are returning to an identity, breathing life into ancient streets and ensuring the flame of the bloodline burns brighter with each passing generation. The Hebrew language, once confined to scrolls and prayer books, now echoes in the laughter of children playing in the streets of Zion, a living testimony to a resurrection no one thought possible. Yet, as the people gather, the shadow of a final conflict looms on the horizon. The ancient prophecies concerning the war of Gog and Magog begin to resonate with terrifying clarity in the modern age. The scriptures speak of a great assembly of nations, a coalition drawn by a mysterious hook to descend upon the mountains of Israel. The pressure is building, not just in the halls of the United Nations, but in the spiritual realms where the forces of opposition prepare for one last attempt to erase the promise once and for all. This is the ultimate test for the City of Peace, a moment where the world's combined military and political power is pitted against the ancient decree of the Creator. The atmosphere is heavy with the scent of an approaching storm, a time of trouble unlike any seen before, where the very survival of the nation seems to hang by a thread. This confrontation is described not as a mere historical event, but as the final sifting of the nations, where the hidden intentions of every heart are revealed under the heat of a global crisis. In the midst of this gathering darkness, the physical restoration of the land begins to give way to a deeper, more profound spiritual awakening. The hearts of the people, long hardened by the trials of the diaspora and the cynicism of the modern age, start to turn back toward the ancient ways. They begin to look upon the Messiah, the figure of final redemption, and a spirit of grace and supplication is poured out over the house of David. This is the moment of true redemption, where the outer walls of the city are finally matched by the inner transformation of the soul. When the nations finally converge and the power of the oppressors reaches its peak, the silence of heaven is broken. The Creator intervenes with a majesty that shatters the weapons of war and humbles the pride of men. The climax of history arrives not through human diplomacy or fragile peace treaties, but through a divine manifestation that establishes a reign of perfect justice. From the ruins of the final battle emerges a vision of the New Jerusalem, a city that finally lives up to its name as a foundation of peace. The light emanating from Israel becomes the beacon for all humanity, drawing the survivors of every nation to learn the ways of the Creator. It is a world without war, where swords are beaten into plowshares and the ancient enmity between brothers is healed at last. The story that began with a voice in the desert calling to Abraham reaches its glorious conclusion in a realm of light and life. The prophecy of Israel is not merely a chronicle of a small nation, but a testament to the absolute faithfulness of the Word. Every promise kept, every exile returned, and every valley of dry bones restored serves as a signal to the world. We are called to watch the signs of the times, for the story of the covenant is the story of a promise that never failed, reminding us that even in the darkest night, the dawn is certain. The Creator has proven that time and distance are no obstacles to His decree, and the restoration of Israel stands as the ultimate proof that the word of the Lord endures forever.